So in this lecture, we're going to be talking about the different questions that we can ask, and based on those questions, we can do some different processing. So, as I said before, we were only executing from the bottom down, one line at a time. And now we are going to be given some choices based on some conditions. If the condition is met, then we do something. If the condition is not met, we do something else. For example, we might ask the user to give us his marks. We calculate the average, and if the average is less than 60%, we display you failed. If not, we display you succeeded, something like that. So how to do that? We're going to be talking about this selection statement, and before getting into all the details, we're going to be talking about the block statements, some branching statements, the different types of branching statements. There are different types of them, and then there's the last one, the nested if statements. We're going to be talking about all those, inshallah, and then practicing them accordingly. So the if-else statement is what allow us to ask questions, and then based on the answer to that question, we're going to be doing some different things. Basically, this is how it looks like. The Boolean expression, means the question. You write if, and then between parentheses you ask your question, and then there's some block here. You open and you close, and there's an else, and you open and you close. What this mean? You're asking a question. The question that you ask, you have to be very careful on what type of questions you're asking, because you can ask only questions that have answers being either yes or no, true or false. This is what this Boolean stands for. Boolean is a data type that has two values, true or false. So you have to ask your questions accordingly. In your question, you should ask something that is going to be either yes, true, or false. If it's true, it is going to be, then the program is going to execute whatever it's inside this block over here. This is the then block. If this is true, yes. Only if this is true. If this is true, I'm going to go here and execute whatever it's inside this true block. And then, should I come back and execute this? No. I finish and do something else if there's something else, or stop. If this is false, then I'm going to execute the other block, the else, and I will jump around this then block. I'm not going to execute it. I'm going to jump around. Like the example that I told you, we calculate the average. If the average is less than 60, we're going to display you failed. And if it's greater than 60, we're going to display you succeeded. We're not going to be displaying you failed and succeeded at the same time, because you failed is somewhere here and you succeeded is somewhere here, for example. Two different blocks. So this is the general idea. So the then block is going to be executed only if this Boolean expression is true, and the else block is going to be executed only when that Boolean expression is false. Let's find out some examples. So you have this example when you read two numbers. This k, you remember what this k, probably it's a scanner, k equal new scanner system.in, so it is not mentioned, but this is what you should understand of this k. So we're reading two numbers, and then I'm doing something. I'm comparing the first number with the second number. So this is actually not only just comparing, but I'm asking a question. I'm saying, is n1 greater than n2? This question, either you say yes or no, true or false. If you say yes, you're going to be displaying n1 is greater than n2. If you say no, then you're going to be displaying n1 is not greater than n2. Let's run this with an example. Imagine I type 5 and 7. That means this 5 is inside n1 and 7 inside n2. Now, what is the result of this question?
False.
Is 5 greater than 7? No, so I'm going to execute and display this. So on the screen, what should I see? No, I'm not going to see N1 because N1 is not between double quotes. You have to be very careful. So I'm going to see 5 is not greater than 7. You have to be careful because this type of questions, this is what you're going to see in the quiz. Give me the output of some instructions. If I tell you something like this, you should give me not N1 is not greater than N2, but what is inside N1 and what is inside N2. And what if N1 and N2 are equal? What if I have 5 and 5? So is 5 greater than 5? No. There's not an error. I'm asking a question. Either it's true or false. There's no error. There's no third state. You should always answer by true or false. Is 5 greater than 5? No, so that's false. That means 5 is not greater than 5. This is what I'm going to see on the screen. Always the same rule. True or false. No third option. Yes.
What was 5.0?
But then this example you have to change it. If you would like to use double, then this is double and double.
If I use double while there is written int, will it be an error?
It depends where you put the double. If you put the double here,
In N1 or N2?
if you put the double here, it is possible because you can always put a smaller data type in a bigger data type. Int is small, double is big. So you can put a small value in a big container. When you do the opposite, for example, if it's int and now you use the next double, then this is not possible.
No, I don't want to change the int. I want to use 5.0.
This is not permissible because you said from the keyboard you're expecting an integer.
Yes, but
And this is going to give you an error.
I will get an error.
Yes. You get an error on this line because you typed 5.0 instead of 5. So this is how it works in the if-else statements. You come from wherever you have the question, what was the code before, and then you have the question. This question, this is how we represent it like this in this control flow. Is N1 greater than N2? If the answer is true, you're going to be doing this. If the answer is false, you're going to be doing something else. And in all the, depending on which path you're following, either you go here and then you execute here and then you go down and then continue, or the other way around. But you're not going to be executing both of them at the same time. One or the other one. And that's the thing that you need to understand from this. Let's now talk about these braces that we opened. There's some, these braces, when you open these braces, like the if, and then we open the braces and you close them, this is called a block. And that block, you have to, there's some rules that applies to it, and then you can have block inside of a block, but let me show you something regarding those blocks. I don't know if this is, no. I was thinking about some other rules regarding that, but maybe this is going to be shown in another slide. On this one over here, so what you're going to be seeing, there's some different types of if. So the general idea of the if and else, we've seen it. You ask a question, you go, if it's true, you go inside the if, the true, the then. If it's not, if it's false, then you go inside of the else. There are different type of this if else. So let's look at those different types. Sometimes you have an if without an else. Well, in this situation, that means you're asking a question. If the answer to this question is true, you're executing this block statement. If the answer is false, do you execute something in the else? No, because there's no else, so you don't do anything if it's false. Otherwise, this will not be executed if it's false. So, like for example, this one. Imagine I entered a number and I type 5. Is 5 greater than 0? Everybody doesn't say yes. Yes? Sure? Is 5 greater than 0? Yes, well, you have to be more, yeah, standing firm on what you believe on. And this is yes, and then when I get inside, I will display negative number is needed, and then what would happen? So the inside the variable, the x that was 5, now I take 5 multiplied by -1, this is -5. What I do with -5, put it inside of x. So now it becomes -5. What is the output of this code if I type -5? Again, I said what is the output? That means I should see, what should I see on the screen? I should see 5? No. Is -5 greater than 0? No. Do I need to do something? No. So am I displaying something? No. So I'm going to see nothing on the screen. No error. Nothing. There's no error. Nothing wrong here. It just, there's nothing to do. I didn't tell anything to do in the case when this is false. When this is false, do nothing. Okay, it does nothing. So you have to always stick to the rule. I'm asking a question. If it's true, it'll get inside here. If it's false, I get inside the else. If else exists. If else doesn't exist, I do nothing. Yes.
If it's not nothing, will not false, it will show nothing.
If it's not, this is the only. I have just one problem with your question, because if you say if it's not true, not false, it's impossible. It's either true, either false. So if it's true, I'm going to see, as you said, this is result. The number is negative number is needed. But if it's false, I'm not going to see anything. Yeah. This is not going to be executed if it's false.
What about interrogative?
This is always going to be seen because this is not inside the if. This is outside of the if. So I'm not asking a question if I should execute this. I'm asking a question if I should execute this.
Yes, yes.
So that's why this is the question. And if this is true, I'm going to execute this one. Regardless of what this question is, I always display enter a negative number, and then I'm reading a negative number, and then I'm reading some number. I don't know if it's negative or positive. I'm going to check it later on. And then if I check that the number is positive, I'm going to do something. If the number is not positive, I'm not doing something. I'm not doing anything, actually. Yeah, if you feel sleepy, don't wait for me to wake you up. I'll just put S, whatever. Do your job, I do mine. You can always go wash your face. Don't stay in that state. So this is how the simple if works. We ask a question. If the answer to this question is true, we do something, and then we continue the program, and then continue. If the answer to this question is false, well, there's nothing to do, so we just continue the program right away. There's nothing else to do. So now we've seen that there are like an if with an else and an if without an else. So else is optional. If I need it, I'm going to use it. If I don't need it, I'm not going to use it. If I tell you, for example, as an exercise, if the student fails, like the previous exercise when we get the average and then we display something. So if I tell you now, I change the exercise, and if the student has an average less than 60, then we display something. If the average is not above 60, I'm not telling you what to do. So that means you just need to use an if without an else. So as a general rule, if you have two things to do depending on the situation, on the condition, then you have an if and else. If you have only one thing to do and then the other thing we don't mention it, that means you have only one situation. You can ask only one if without the else. There's now some different things that might happen if you're using if and else. You have to be very careful, because in Java and also different programming languages, they allow you to use the then, whatever it's inside of the if, without the braces. You know those braces that we opened? Like, let's say, have a look at here. Let's go back here. Like here, you see those braces over here?
Yes.
So it is possible not to put those braces, but there is a special condition that needs to be met if you don't want to put them. I strongly advise you to always put the braces. But just to let you know what the language is, the Java programming language allow you to not use those braces in one situation. What is that situation? If you have only one line, not two, only one line in the if or one line in the else. If you have only one line, one statement, one instruction, only one, then you can avoid putting the braces. However, I strongly advise you to always put them. But maybe in some code you might read the code and you have to be able to understand that code. And if you have more than one line, if you put two of them, this is not okay. If you have like this, something like this, and then you remove those braces, this is not as you expected. What would happen actually, it's like you tell Java, well, the if starts here and stop here. This is outside of the if. Even if you put the spaces for the computer, you remember, it's nothing. The computer can just take everything in one line. So the spaces are going to be not meaning that this is inside the if. What means that inside the if, either I use the braces, and that it clearly states that it starts here and stops here, or I don't use the braces, and then I make sure that I have only one statement inside of the if. Let's test this understanding in the next slide. Not this one, this one. If you have some code like this, what do you think about this code? Is it okay?
No.
Wait.
Because there is two lines.
Well, the first thing that you notice is actually there are two lines, two statements inside of this if, and I don't have the braces, so this is wrong. What would happen actually this here, it will consider that this is not part of the if. This is actually going to be like outside of the if, and the if is just from here to here, and then you have another instruction, and then you have else without an if, and this is something that you should never do. You can never have an else without an if. Else works only with if. If can work without else, but else always need an if. So it's going to tell us this is a mistake. You're having an else without an if. You can try this inshallah later on, and you can see that this is the mistake that you're going to get. So this is a better way to do it. This is okay. It gives you what you want, because you notice that this is the same. The difference is the same instruction, and then I can just move it out, and then now I have something that is permissible. I don't need to put the braces because I have only one statement inside the if and one statement inside the else.
No, two statements.
No, this is not two statements. When I don't put the braces, this is only one statement. When I don't put the braces, this means this is where else starts and this is where it stops. When I don't put the braces. If you put the space, doesn't mean that this is like, it doesn't mean that because there's a space, it doesn't mean that this is inside the else. Because we said if it's inside the else, either you use the braces or you don't. If you use the braces, that's clear. You know when the else starts and when it ends. When you don't put the braces, this is the danger. You have to be careful. Only one line, the first one, is the one that is inside the else. The other one is outside. That's what's important. That's why I always advise you, always use the braces. You don't get confused. Because sometimes you put the spaces, you look at the code, you see, oh, that's it. That's inside of the else, but it is not. Very careful. Be very careful on that. this one is going to give you an error. An error because this else doesn't have an if. And you cannot put a statement between the if and else. However, if I put the braces here and there, then this is not an error message. However, this is going to be understood like this, because there are no braces here. Like only this line is going to be part of the else, not this one. If I want this line, all of them to be part of it, I have to specify clearly that this is where it starts, where it ends, all of them. And that's why actually I'm strongly advising you to always use the braces, regardless. Even if you have only one line, I personally, this is what I do. Personally, in my programming, I always use the braces, even if I have only one line. Okay, sometimes one if is not enough. And even you can have like if next to each other is still not enough. We need to have one inside of another one. So how to have one inside of another one? We can have something like this, and now this is becoming a bit complicated because you need just to focus. If you lose your focus, you're going to get confused. For example, have a look at this. Imagine that I have put into salary and months seems to be two variables. So I'm going to, in the salary, and I just refer to them as S and M. Imagine in the salary I have something like 5, and month have something like 2. What is the output of this program, of this part, of this code?
F5.
Now I'm not asking you about F5. What is the output? So I just would like to think about it and then tell me the output, the result of this code.
You cannot get along.
You cannot get a loan?
Yeah.
Okay. Someone else has another idea? Okay, how did you do it?
You cannot get
Because the salary is less than 5,000.
So you ask the question, is salary, in this case we said 5, is greater than 5,000
Yeah.
or equal? Oh, by the way, this means, is it greater or equal?
Yes.
If it's greater, it's going to get to be true. If it's equal, it's going to be true as well. But if it is not greater, not equal, like this case, so this is false. The block starts here and ends here. That means this else is, this is this block inside of the if. This else is of this if, right?
Yeah.
So that means because it's 5, I'm going to jump inside this. Yes, I'm going to display inside this else, sorry, there is only display, you cannot get a loan. So that's what I'm going to see on the screen. I ask the question, if the question is true, I get inside. It was not true. The answer to this question is false. That means now this, since it's false, I need to go to the else. Yes.
Okay, I get it. So the first is true, and the one below is false, right?
The first is true. I don't get it. What is the first is true?
I mean, from the F, salary bigger than equal to 5,000 until the second else.
This one.
Yes, before it.
Okay, let me do something because I don't understand what you're referring to. So, okay. So you're talking about this if that starts here, and when does it stop?
Ends at that part.
Here. Yes.
So this is all true.
This is the part that if I'm getting inside if it's true. Yes.
Yes. And this else is false.
Yes. When this first question is false. Yes.
Okay. How can I get the first else?
You mean this one?
Yes.
I'm getting to it. So now we understood that if this question is true, I get inside. If this is false, I don't get inside here. I go to the else, if else exists, right? Now let's put something. Imagine that it is 5,000 inside of the salary. I'm going to ask, is salary, which is 5,000, greater or equal to 5,000? What is your answer to this? Yes or no? True or false?
I get.
This is true. Now where should I go?
Just
Get inside this block. So when I get inside this block, I find that the first thing that is waiting for me is another question. Now this question, as you have noticed, the first time when it was 5, I did not think about asking what is inside of m, because inside the else we didn't care about the m, the month. But here when we get inside the if, there is another question waiting for us, asking us, is the months greater or equal than 3? What is the months? 2. Is 2 greater than or equal than 3? No, so I'm going to go inside here, and what should I see on the screen? You get 20,000 loan. Yes.
That means two questions.
Yes, and this is what is mean this nested if statements. Nested, that means one inside of the other one. Yes. If the first question is true, then we can ask the second question, because this second question is in the then block. If the first question is false, like if it was 5, we get here. We never had to ask this question, because this question is part of this block, which is the block if this is true. Okay? By the way, can I ask you not to put some noises like this? And because everything is going to be recorded, and then maybe the quality of the sound is going to be affected. Especially the guys on the front. Alright, so this is how it works. If you have if inside of an if, or it can be an if inside of an else. It doesn't have to be like in this structure. Nested if doesn't mean that it has always to be inside of the if. It can be an if inside of the if, or if inside of the else. And this is something that is flexible. Is there any rule? No. Your situation and how you want it to be done, this is what is going to define which combination you're going to be using. But it's actually what is the problem that defines how you can try to solve solve that problem for getting the solution to that problem. So, but you have to always have in your mind, always remember that we ask a question. If it's true, we get inside of the then this block. If it's false, we get inside of the else. That's always going to be the case. We're not going to be changing this rule. It's not going to be changing if we see something different. So this rule always applies. Just now you have another problem. Your problem is that you have to follow. When I open a brace, make sure that you close it at the right place. Because if you forgot to close one, the meaning might be different. Or it might get an error message. And trust me, your first programming with these examples, you're going to be having some of those mistakes. So in the practical part, I'm going to show you, inshallah, some advice on how to make sure that you never get into some problems with these braces. Inshallah. Yes. You mean if the first question is true, like for example the salary is 5,100 or 5,000, and the second question is like the month is 6, for example. So this is going to be true, so I get inside, and then I find another question. I'm checking months. Months is 6 is greater than 3, yes. So I'm going to get inside this one over here. What I'm going to see is you get loan, you get 50,000 loan. But when I'm here, after I executed this line, should I also execute this line? No, because once I get inside one of them, I don't get inside of the rest. Okay, now since I finished this one, I get out of this if. Should I get inside the else? No, because once I finished with this block from here, I just get out. So I finish from this one, I get out, I see if there's anything after the if. There's nothing after the if, so okay, so let's get out from that if again. Any question? So it's something that, again, you can understand it, but for the practical, inshallah, we're going to have a better understanding of that, inshallah. And as a general advice, always use indentation with nested statements. Why? Because again, the computer does not need those spaces. In your Java file, you can put everything in one line if you want. But for us, it's going to be very hard to read. Imagine now if you have like these statements, if inside of an if. Now if I put this indentation, I can see clearly that this is because it's push the bit inside, that this is inside of this if, and this is inside of this else. It's clearly showing me what is inside of each one of them. Even you can see clearly that this if is inside another if, because everything is indented. You can see there's this indentation, this push here. Actually, with the NetBeans, if you use NetBeans, that's why I'm advising you also to use it. If you type your code, there's a combination that is Alt and I think Alt Shift. If you press simultaneously on Alt and Shift and F for format the code, it will just make your code indented correctly. I'm going to show that inshallah in the practical part. So indent everything. What about this thing over here? Is this okay? First of all, is there any mistake on this code?
Brace. The second if. Not the brace.
The end brace.
The end brace of this one? Well, no.
No, there is no.
This is tricky. Okay.
You don't have to have an else.
This if I opened this one, right?
Yes.
So now after that I have another if, and that if I did not open,
Yes, but it's one line.
and it's one line, so it's okay, it's permissible. So as if I opened here for this one, then I close this one. Which one should I close? The first one. Actually, the indentation is wrong, the spaces are wrong, but everything is okay because now I have if that starts here and ends here. Inside that if I have another if, no problems. And inside this is the else, not on this if, of this if, but of this one. Because of the spaces you might think, oh, because this is the else of this if, but it is not. It's very important to realize that the block starts here and stops here. Now this is the block of the first if, this else is the else of this first if.
But there is no declaration.
There's no?
Declaration.
What do you mean declaration? The X, yeah, we just want to show, we don't know what's inside of them. But I just would like you to realize that don't always look at the spaces to understand what the code. Look at the code itself. This is actually equivalent to this. We open here and we closed here. So this is we opened here and then we closed here. This else of this if. And then there's no braces here, but if I put braces I will open them here and close them here, like we have them here. So this is opening here and closing there, and all of this is inside of this first if. So this else is of this first if. So that's why be very careful. It's always, it pays more. It might be a bit longer to type always the braces, but it's in terms of the clarity of your code, it's better. Always use the braces. So now, just for fun, if x and y, let's put some values. If x was 2 and 3 for y, what would be the result of this code? It's better to see it here because this is better organized. You can see that these braces are clearly showing what's inside of what. So is 2 less than 3?
Will you go L?
Yes, but it asks about z. I did not put z. Let's put z here. And z, what's the value in z? 8.
String or double?
I'm assuming that this is numbers. Yeah.
So it will be hello.
So is x less than z? 2 is less than 8? Yes, so I'm going to see hello. I get outside, so it's done. I'm done with this if. Is there anything else? No. So I'm done also with the other one. So I'm going to see hello. So you can see the two codes, one of them is clearer than the other one. Always use the braces. This is your best way to avoid mistakes, especially in the beginning. After that, if you're comfortable, then you can avoid using them if you want. Yes?
If x smaller than z, let's say it's false. What will happen?
Okay, good question. Let's try it. For example, the first one, x. Let's okay. Let's just not do that. Let's erase everything. And imagine that now x is 2 and this one is 3 and z is 0. So 2 less than 3 we get inside. Is 2 less than 0? No.
Go to the else.
No. I'm asking this question here, and thanks for asking, so it clarifies that. Is there any else in this if?
No.
This is false and there's no else. Should I do something?
No.
There's nothing to do. So I get out, and what should I see on the screen? Nothing. Nothing.
If I want to get the else, I have to be false. And
You should have like x greater than than y. Then this is going to be, you're going to be sent to the else. So always remember to follow the rule. If it's true, you get inside. If it's false, you get into the else if the else exists. If the else doesn't exist, you do nothing. You just continue. So that's why this was saying that this is only executed if this is true. If this is false, this is not going to be executed. Okay, what about this one? Is this the same code?
yes.
Okay, just to test you, sorry, just to have some fun with this code, we have x, y, and z. Imagine that this is 2, 3, and 4. What should I see on the screen? And don't go too quick.
Without brackets. Hello.
What should I see on the screen? If I give you this code, what should be the output of this code?
Hello. Hello.
Everybody says hello?
Yes.
Error?
Yes.
Okay, let's find out the error. What is the error? There's no brackets?
Yes.
Braces? Braces? Well, we don't have to put braces if you have only one line
Yes.
inside of the if. But then, maybe I know why you say this is error, because this if over here, what's inside of this if, the first one? All of it. Everything is inside of this first if. And this is considered as one thing, one line. Well, it's not actually my saying, what I was saying, one line. This was not actually precise enough. It's one type, one instruction. Even this one instruction doesn't apply to this. Anyway, if you have only one thing, and if you have if is considered to be one thing, one line, one instruction. So this means that I have an if. The first one doesn't have an else. But the second one, it has another else. So if is 2 less than 3, yes, I get inside. Is 2 less than 4? Yes, I'm going to say hello. Let's change it a bit. Now if I have like 3, for example, here. Is 3, alright, let's don't go too quick. Is 3 less than 3?
Nothing.
So this is the if. It starts here, it stops here. No, there's no else. Yeah, there's false, you're right. So this is false. There's no else. There's nothing that is displayed. The output, nothing.
Can you go back to the previous exercise?
Because this is like this. I'm going to show so I can compare them both. Because this is, the block is here, and inside this block, even if you put this else on the same line as an if, it doesn't mean that it is inside, it is next to it. It is the if-else of this if. It's the else of the first if. And again, you see the confusion that might happen if you don't use the braces? Look, if you use the braces, you don't need to focus that much. Everything is clearly, you just need to follow the braces. So try to always use the braces. And yes, someone had a question. Yeah.
If I want to make else outside, I will have to end the if.
You mean here?
Put braces before.
Yeah, put the brace here and close it here. And even though, no, you have to put the brace here and close it here.
I'll close it before the else
Yes.
to make it outside.
Yes. So this is what was here. It was here and then closed before the else. And the else was opened again You see, this is opened and closed here. Which you have to open it here before. Let's say if you would like to have the same situation than before, you open it here and you close it just before the else. Now this else now is attached to this if because of the braces. Okay. So this is some exercise that we're going to be doing. If we'd like to convert this to a program, so we have like many questions. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 questions. But how are we going to be doing these? Is that we have the first question, we have an if. If it's greater than 7, then inside of this if, there's another if, because there's another question. And I'm going to ask if the pH is greater, or sorry, it's lesser than 12. In that case, I'm going to do something, or else I'm doing something else. And this is the end of the first if, because this first if has only one if inside of it. Else, all this part of it. Inside this else, I have another if. And this if, I'm asking if this is equal to 7. By the way, if I would like to say if something is equal to something else, I don't use only 1. Because remember, 1 means something. When you take this, put it there. If I'd like to ask a question, is x equal to 7? I need to put 2. 2 equal sign. But let me finish. Let me finish, and I'll take your question. Okay? Because now I just started with this first part. When I just started the if and else, so this part, I dealt with it with the if. For the true, because I went into the true. Now the other half is inside of the else. What was your question?
Because in the first step,
Yes.
if bigger than 7, so is it, can you make it another step after the first step, is it less than 7, bigger than 7, it will be false.
Exactly. So if it's false, I need to put the else and then do something.
The end, false.
Sorry?
But you make it in at the end.
Yes, because I went inside the if, so because I would like to do whatever it needs to be done inside the if. I'll just finish with one section and then go back to the other one. Yeah. I could have started also to the other one. For if and leave the if blank, I don't fill it now. I fill the else and then I need to go back to it. It's the same idea. Yeah. And in the else, I have another question. If the question is true, I'm displaying something. If the question is false, that means if it's true, I'm doing something. Else, if it's false, inside the else, there's another question waiting for me. So, just to summarize this, I have an if. Inside of this if, I have else, another if else. And in the else of this if, there's another if. And in the else of the second if, there's another if. So this is as an exercise. Try to do it before the practical part, inshallah, and you see if you're able to convert that. Just every time, don't forget, if you have a question, put the condition, open the brace, close the brace. And this is how you're going to be trying not to get confused. Okay. Another way to do these, when you have some different questions, yes, when you have some different situations, you can ask the questions one next to the other using this if-elseif-else statement. Which means if you have many conditions, if this is, for example, we'd like to have the grade. If the grade is between 95 and 100, it's A+, display A+. If it's between 90 and 95, display A. If it's between, so you have a lot of different questions that you need to ask. So you can chain those questions one next to the other, and sometimes you find this called as if-else chain. First, you ask the first question. If the first question is true, you execute here and then you get out. So if one of them is true, you execute what's inside and then you get out. If it's false, well, you keep going. Is this? You ask another question. This is false? Okay, ask another question. Is it false? You keep going until one of them is true. If this is true, okay, you execute what's inside and then you get out. And you can have like if, else if, else if, else if, and the last one is else. For example, if this is false, 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 everything is false, you can decide if all of them are false, this is what you need to do. Again, this else is optional as well. You can not have it if you want. Else is optional. And the conditions are evaluated from top to bottom. That means if one is true, I'll stop asking the questions about the rest. If this one is true, I'm not going to be continuing asking all the questions. Halas, I just finished, execute the block, and leave. I don't get to other questions. Yes?
But can I use an extra F inside there?
Of course, inside each block, you can have whatever you want. You can have another if, and you can have if-else, of if-elseif-else again, no problem. Each block can be a program on its own. So this is the idea behind this if-else-if, and we're going to be doing some exercises, and we're going to see actually the same program sometimes you can have it either written as a nested if with if inside of if or if inside of else, or you can have it like this if-else-if-else-if, and generally if-else-if-else-if is easier to read and program because you have less nesting and less braces to follow up. So this else is optional, as we said, and it is going to be executed only if everything is false. Yeah, for example, this is the type of code that will show this result. For example, this is going to be displaying the score. So for example, we ask the user to type the score, and based on this table we're going to display either A, B, C, D or N. For example, let's run this code and let's put 5 into score. Okay, imagine that this is score. Inside my score I put 5. Is 5 greater than 85? No. What should I do?
Go to else.
Else if, ask the other question. Is 5 greater than 75? Greater or equal than 75? No. Keep going. Else, keep asking the question. Is 65? No. 50? No. Else? Okay, else, so I'm going to display the grade is N. Yes?
I can skip all of those if I can put a braceless.
If you put a brace, for example here, and you close it here,
Yes.
then this is going to become a different structure. You're not going to be answering this question, but yes, will have another meaning. However, this is going to give you a mistake, because inside of this block you start your instruction with else if. So if you would like to do something like this, you should remove this else, because else cannot start without an if. Else is always need to be linked to an if. If you put this as a block separate, now this else if cannot be a beginning of a statement. You can have if that starts and then else if, but you cannot start with else if. I don't know if I answered your question. Was it your question? Did I answer your question? Okay. Now let's try with another number. Let's try with the 65, for example. So score now is 65. Is 65 greater or equal to 85? No. 65 greater or equal than 75? No. Is 65 greater or equal than 65? Yes. And I'm going to get inside and display the grade is C. This is what you should see on the screen. Then next, what should happen? After I display grade is C, I get out. I just get out of this structure. If there's something else here, I am going to execute it. If there's nothing, I will stop. What happens if it's like 90? Is score greater than 85 or equal to 85? Yes. Display A and then jump everything. everything is optional, well, one of them is true. If the first one is true, the rest is optional. If the second one is true, the rest is optional. I mean optional in terms of I'm not going to be executing it. Okay, finally, and then I'm going to leave you with the enough headache that you have already. But there's another way when you can have like different situations, when you have different cases. There's another structure which is called switch, which is not really used much, but sometimes it's interesting to use, so we need to understand it. So this switch and is another way of like another if-elseif-else, and this is how it works, and it looks really not easy to read, but let's try to get into it. First of all, the difference between this switch and the other if-else-if and if-else-if is that here I'm not asking a question. I'm putting some variable, for example, or some expression. But let's say to make it simpler, just I'm putting a variable name. And then I'm asking if this variable name, the value of it, if it's equal to this, I'm doing something like here. If it's equal to that, I'm doing something else here. And like if-else-if in the way it works. Let's probably have a look at an example. Let me show you an example if we have, I think, yeah, we have one. Look at this example. I put 30 in Y, 20 in Z, get ready to read something, and then I'm printing 1 to add, 2 subtract, 3 multiply, and then enter value. Now we are waiting for the choice from the user. The user should type enter on either 1, 2, or 3 to be able to know what he wants to do with those numbers, the 30 and 20. If the user types 1, okay, now this is choice now is 1. Imagine that I typed 1 and pressed enter. Now choice is 1. And I say case 1, this is the value. Is this choice equal to 1? Yes. I'm going to execute this, which means 30 plus 20, that's 50. I'm going to display on the screen 50. And after that, break. This break means don't continue, get out. Because if I remove the break, I can just keep going. And this is one of the advantages of this switch. If I type, for example, 2 instead of 1, let's run the program again. Imagine I run the program and then it displays 1, add, 2, subtract, 3, multiply. I press 2 and then press enter. Is choice, is it 1? No. Is it 2? Yes. So I'm inside this. And I'm going to execute this code over here. And this code tells me display 30 minus 20, that means 10. And break, which means get out. So this is how it works. If you type 2, you're going to see minus 10. Oh, because it says 20 minus 30. Okay, I was doing wrong. If I type 65, so is 65 equal to 1? No. Equal to 2? No. Equal to 3? No. This is like the else. Default, if none of these cases are met, then I'm going to get into the default, and this is what I'm going to see, wrong choice and break. This break is optional, I don't need to have it. What if I remove this break? For example, imagine that this break is removed. Yes?
I see all the cases.
Not all, if only this one, because there's other breaks. But if I remove only this one, what would happen? If I type, for example, 2, it is going to display the result of this, and then because there's no break, I'm not going to get out and continue and display Z multiplied by Y, so 600. There's a break, I get out. So sometimes I might do something that will help me do multiple cases in one, or it's up to me actually. It's not really used quite frequently, but just because now the purpose of this course is not to just show you how to program, but it's all to give you the different tools that are available. We show you the different tools. Like a mechanic, he has different tools. Two tools might be doing the same job. You can do the same job with the two different tools, but maybe one of them is more suited to the situation that you're using. So you need to know all these tools, and then you might decide later on which one is more easy to use or more appropriate to that situation that you're in. So this is the section 3.1. There's some exercises that we're going to be doing in the practical part, and I'm going to be doing them, and this is going to be uploaded on the inshallah on the website as well. So do these exercises before the practical. It's going to be very beneficial for you. You're going to learn actually much if whatever you've seen here, you understood it well or not. Start with the first one, which is quite not simple. We just would like to enter a number and then decide if this number is even or odd. If I type 10, yes, the practical. If I type 10, for example, it should display 10 is even, something like that. If I type 5, it should display 5 is odd. Yeah, something like that. How do I know if some number is odd or even? You forgot. How do I know if a number is odd or even? Very good. The division reminder. The modular division. Remember the percentage symbol? And you have like 5, and then remind the division of 2 is going to give you 1. If it's 1, that means it's odd. If it's not 1, like you have 4 cards to give to 2 people, then the result is what is left, 0. That means this is even. So if the result of the division, the remainder of the division by 2 of any number, if it's 1, that means that number is odd. If it's 0, that means that number is even. So you have the exercise, you have the idea, and just all you need to do now is to practice it. So try it. You're going to benefit from it more than if I just show it to you, inshallah.